Now the fumaric acid formed in this step, which carries the 4 carbon, undergoes hydration. During hydration, water molecule is involved. So water molecules come inside. So finally fumaric acid changes into malic acid, again a 4 carbon compound or 4 carbon organic acid, in the presence of the enzyme called as fumarase. Okay, pay attention to one thing. This is the enzyme which I was talking about, is present in the inner membrane of mitochondria. Rest all the enzymes you are learning in this cycle are present inside the matrix. The role of this in the membrane will be covered to you in the next class. So now the fumaric acid has changed by hydration into malic acid, 4 carbon compound again in the presence of fumarase enzyme. And then the final step of this cycle is the malic acid, which carries the 4 carbons, will undergo again oxidation or dehydration, that means loss of protons, or you can say loss of hydrogen, to NAD+. So NAD+ will be reduced into NADH2. So that means malic acid is oxidized into oxaloacetic acid, again a 4 carbon compound in the presence of malate dehydrogenase. So this is how the whole reaction goes about. Now in this process, what is main to understand is the overall reaction, because if you check NCERT, many of the steps are not written in the NCERT, even in the cycle also. So the overall reaction of this process is that pyruvic acid, one molecule of pyruvic acid picks up with the 4 NADH. You can check here how 4 NADH, because 1 NADH is formed here, 1. So 1 NAD plus is involved here. Another NAD is involved here, so 2. Another NAD is involved here, 4. And this is the 4th one. So for one pyruvic acid, 4 NAD plus are involved. And only one FAD is involved. And then there are involvement of 2 molecules of water in this process. And then 2 ADP, you can even call it as 2 GDP, because I just told you GDP is equivalent to ATP. So now this whole thing will undergo the Krebs cycle, and finally what we get is 3 molecules of carbon dioxide, because you can see here pyruvic acid carries 3 carbon, 1 carbon already lost here, 1 carbon is lost as carbon dioxide to give rise to 2 carbon compound. Now only 2 carbons are left here, so you can check here in this process, 1 carbon gone here, 1 carbon gone here. So finally pyruvic acid has turned into 1 carbon dioxide, 1 carbon dioxide, 1 carbon dioxide. So pyruvic acid is changed into 3 carbon dioxide molecules and 4 NADH2 and 1 FADH2, and then we have the ATP. I made a mistake here. I'm sorry for that. Just 1 ADP. Now, because we know that glucose carries 6 carbon, so when we talk about glucose complete use to produce energy, then what should we say is, because glucose carries 6 carbon and it undergoes glycolysis to produce 2 pyruvic acid, so this cycle has to be considered 2 times, because pyruvic acid carries 3 carbon. That means this whole thing have to be understood in this manner, that it will overall give rise to 6 carbon dioxide, because 2 times, 8 NADH2 because again it's 2 times, 2 FADH2 and 2 GDP, or you can even call it as 2 ATP. Please remember, this GDP ATP formation is a type of substrate level phosphorylation. So before we move on to the next main topic, I just want to summarize this whole thing once again, that the pyruvic acid first of all enters into the from the cytoplasm into the mitochondria. As it enters the mitochondria, in the outer space itself, it undergoes oxidation, which is also called as dehydrogenation, followed by decarboxylation, and changes into acetyl coenzyme A with the liberation of carbon dioxide and liberation of NADH2. This acetyl coenzyme A now undergoes condensation with oxaloacetic acid in the presence of citrate synthetase enzyme and changes into a 6 carbon acid called as citric acid, and the citric acid undergoes isomerism with the help of dehydration and then rehydration, and it changes finally into isocitric acid in the presence of a conitase enzyme. Now this isocitric acid undergoes second oxidative decarboxylation. Please pay attention. First oxidative decarboxylation has taken place here. Now the second oxidative decarboxylation is taking place at this step, and this will change now into alpha ketoglutaric acid, and this acid now carries just the 5 carbon, and the enzyme involved is again dehydrogenase enzyme. The alpha ketoglutaric acid now undergoes the third oxidative decarboxylation. So again similar type of step, and there will be loss of carbon dioxide, and then there will be production of NADH2, and finally alpha ketoglutaric acid with the involvement of coenzyme A changes into succinyl coenzyme A, a 4 carbon containing compound, which undergoes loss of coenzyme A and then liberation of GTP or ATP, finally changes into succinic acid in the presence of synthetase enzyme. This is called as substrate level phosphorylation or GTP ATP synthesis. And then the next step is the dehydrogenation again, which can also be called as oxidation, in which succinic acid changes into fumaric acid in the presence of dehydrogenase enzyme, and FADH2 is formed as a byproduct. And this fumaric acid now undergoes hydration in the presence of fumarase enzyme and changes into malic acid, again a 4 carbon compound. And this malic acid, finally the last step, undergoes oxidation or dehydrogenation and liberates NADH2 and converts into oxaloacetic acid. So this is the way it is regenerated to continue the cycle even in the future.